What's up guys, my name is Julian and today I have another extremely valuable and exciting video. I have Theo here all the way from Arizona. As my channel has grown over the last few years, I've been getting calls from people all over the country, and at first I tried to do all of the consultations myself, but what I've learned is that it actually really helps to have local experts that are representing me and their own 5-star companies in every different area, and that allows a more thorough and actually valuable consultation to take place, because at the end of the day, every utility and city and there's just so many complex factors that differentiate, San Diego from Tucson to New York, right? And so it really helps to have, like I said, a local expert. And so Theo came all the way out from Tucson to make a video with us. So being in Arizona, obviously it's hot. So what are some of these things that you really have to watch out for and especially take into account, when choosing an installer? Because I always tell people at the end of the day, we can all go buy whatever panels and whatever inverters. And if you have good connections, obviously you'll be able to get the better panels and the better inverters. But ultimately, if you have, the best panels, but then you're committing some of these atrocious solar installation errors, what are some of those that we have to avoid and look for?
One of the biggest errors you can make in Arizona is to select a central string inverter specifically placed on the south or the west side of your house that will just get beat and beat and beat with sunlight. You're going to lose efficiency on that conversion basis. And then as that inverter heats up, it's going to slowly wear down. It's going to start to damage. Its monitoring features could be disabled. And, the turnaround can be anywhere from 15 to 3 or 4 months to get an inverter replacement. I know there are certain lawsuits going on right now with certain inverter companies, and my recommendation when possible is to always opt for a microinverter. My preferred inverter that I have on my roof, the Enphase IQ8s. They're a great system, and you get all the perks, all the monitoring features, and the modularity. So, heard it once, heard it before, but if one panel goes down, the whole system will act independently, and you're going to be covered in the event that a microinverter needs to be replaced.
How many microinverters have you had to replace because of a failure versus, the centralized inverters? I'm curious what your experience is, because I know my experience is like, on my 10 fingers, I could count how many microinverters I've had to replace. And with solar edge inverters, which is mainly the product we use out here for centralized, well, I don't use it anymore, but I even get a call probably every other day from a random person that I wasn't even my customer that basically said, hey, that installation company's out of business, and I have this centralized inverter that they told me that it failed, and I'm looking for someone to come replace it. And so that it just happens all the time to me. So what is your experience?
We've seen a handful as well. So in my personal instance, I've seen 2 microinverters that need to be replaced. Most of those were early on into the installation process where whether it was a faulty component from the manufacturer and that was just a quick replacement, we replaced it without even needing to wait for the manufacturer to send us a part. But the microinverter is cooler, it's shaded, it's protected. On the roof, it can catch more of an airflow. We want a nice little air breeze going underneath the panels. I really don't see a world in solar where microinverters will be superseded by string inverters. If you're in Arizona and you don't like to make service calls or call your installer every 2 or 3 years, the Enphase solution is a great option to opt in for.
I literally just had a guy call me from one of the states I actually don't service. It was up in the Northeast. I think it was Maine. Anyways, he basically said, hey, I know that you told me to go with Enphase. I thought it would be better. Ultimately, I did end up doing a centralized inverter. The reason why is because it's a ground mount that's 400 feet from the panel, and I didn't want to experience the AC loss. And I understand that's a lot of loss that he was gonna experience. And so, I get why he went with a solar edge inverter, but he wanted to call me up and tell me 3 months later that his solar edge inverter just failed. And so he just thought it would be valuable information for me to taken to my database essentially. So yeah, still to this day, I'm seeing a lot of reliability issues with them as well. SolarEdge says that they've beefed up the internals to be automotive grade. We still had to replace one of the automotive grade inverters. So time will tell. In theory, if it works, great. But unfortunately, we are dealing with technologies that, for whatever reason, they aren't perfected yet. You know, like a lot of people, they always talk about how they're always nervous about which panel they go with. But in reality, it's like, which inverters are you going with? That's like a way more important question. But I know everyone wants to know about panels. So with that being said, what is the best panel to use when you're in a really, really hot environment like Arizona? You know, in the summer when it's getting, you just said it was like 110 or 105, 110 and
8th hottest year in a row. Yeah, we consistently, I think Phoenix did about 30 days straight of 110 plus degree weather throughout July. Just mind blowing. So I always make the analogy that solar panels are kind of like computers in the fact that when they get hot, there's like a fan, you know, that cools the computer down. And, you know, with a solar panel, that's more like just the wind outside being the natural fan. So solar panels, they don't like to get super, super hot. And obviously when they're up on your roof in 105 degree weather, they're probably 145 degrees or 50 degrees, you know, sitting on your roof. What panels ultimately perform better? And how can you look at a spec sheet and know this panel is actually pretty good versus like, you know, kind of a cheap panel for the most part? Yeah, I'm gonna send everyone to watch Julian's panel comparison guide here.
Oh, stop.
The answer is pretty straightforward. It's the panel with the lowest temperature coefficient. So we do see the likes of REC, Panasonic, SunPower. I believe there's a new panel entering the market, the Meyer-Burger panel. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yep.
They are all boasting very low temperature coefficients, which is exactly what you need in Arizona climate. As the panel increases in temperature above its nominal operating temperature, you're going to have that production loss. The panels that I have on my roof, they're the Q-cell panels. So there's certainly a conversation to be had with your advisor, whether you want a premium price point for high resilient, high temperature coefficient panels, or you're looking for the bang for your buck, the fastest return on investment, the most power possible. You're going to get into likes of Q-cell, Silfab, Mission Solar.
So, you know, why would somebody want to basically pay, let's say it's $1,500 more or $2,000 more to do, you know, the REC panels versus the Q-cell panels? Why is that worth it? Does it pay for it itself ultimately? I mean, because if it doesn't pay for itself, then I don't know why someone would do it. So how do you save more money by spending more money ultimately on a better panel? How does that really work?
Yeah, so kind of breaking down the best panel, you know, you're going to have the efficiencies, the temperature coefficient, degradation, company strength, right? It's all factored into it. But when you compare on a temperature coefficient and efficiency basis here, you're taking a premium panel and you're comparing it to an almost premium tier 1 panel as well. What we see is that with that premium panel, it's sort of the best return on investment. With tier 1 slightly below premium, like a Silfab or a Q-cell, you're going to have the fastest return on investment. So the question is really, do you want to make your money back as soon as possible, or do you want to be ahead at year 15 and you know that the system will be able to perform that much more efficiently as the years go on? So as a homeowner, realizing what situation you want to be in 10 or 15 years down the line is super important to be able to build the system not just for today, but 10, 15, 20, 25 years down the line is the question to really ask.
So like, for example, the degradation on an REC panel, it's about 14%, right, over the course of 25 years. So they guarantee 86% at year 25 in terms of degradation. And for the REC product, it's a 92% guarantee, so only 8% degradation. So what we would do is basically in a pretty linear fashion, right? So let's say your system is supposed to produce 10,000 kilowatt hours year one. Well, if you zoom out to year 25, right, the REC panel it's supposed to produce 9,200 kilowatt hours based on the degradation, and the Q-cell panel would be producing 8,600 kilowatt hours. So every year, basically that difference is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And so over time, the more expensive panel will eventually catch up and save you that difference. And then once you cross over, you'll even be in the green again every month and even be saving the most amount of money.
You summed it up absolutely perfectly. I like Q-cells. They've been around for 20 years, great company backing. They've got their patented quantum paste, black on black look. And for me and my goals, I knew that I wanted to overbuild the system and have more capacity or more available power for my system and get the fastest return on investment. If the situation for you is to put yourself in that circumstance where you're going to have the most efficiency as the coming years go through, absolutely. RECs are great panels, and we've done hundreds and hundreds of REC installs. I don't think they're going to be going away anytime soon.
What's one of the most confused topics when it comes to figuring out if solar makes sense, and ultimately, what do you hear constantly that people are confused about and need just a simple and easy explanation so they can understand it and not make simple mistakes?
Yes, the number one most misinterpreted concept is the tax credit. What is the tax credit? How do I get it?
Because I heard before that the government was going to give me free solar panels. I saw it on some Facebook ad.
So there's
no free solar panels.
There's certainly a lot of miscommunication and confusion around what is the solar tax credit? How did it come to be? How do I claim it? And how I would be a good fit for it. So I always do a soft tax assessment. I'm gonna kind of ask you what your gross filing income is gonna be, and we're gonna punch that into a tax calculator, and we're gonna get a rough basis line for what you owe on federal taxable income at the end of the year. Couple of important notes here is it's a non-refundable tax credit. So if you're husband and wife filing together and you have 3 or 4 kids, those kids are walking tax credits. They're $2,000 a piece, and they will take priority over your non-refundable tax credit. Kids are refundable tax credits. You get those back no matter what, no matter how much tax you owe. But the solar tax credit then comes in and looks at, okay, after you've taken all of the interest off your mortgage rate, charitable donations, and these walking tax credits, what is my taxable liability at the end of the day?
Yep.
And if your solar tax credit is $10,000 on a purchase system and you have $5,000 of liability, that is going to carry over. I know they cleaned up the roofing line. That's probably something else to talk on. Can I use the tax credit for roofing and HVAC?
Did they changed it?
They made it pretty darn clear. You cannot re-roof. But
what if it's a picture frame?
I don't know.
What if it's a picture frame in the solar contract?
I know ground mounts and shade structures are fine. For anyone that's wondering if I can use the tax credit to re-roof with solar, I would caution them. Again, there's a lot of miscommunication on the tax credit. There are organizations out there that might promise bonuses, vacations, free air conditioning units, free re-roofs. These are all misinterpretations of the tax credit. Tax credit truly reads all aspects of your solar system, including permitting, panels, racking, inverters, are qualified for the solar tax credit. Anything that is not required, e.g. a HVAC unit or a roof, unfortunately cannot be claimed by the investment tax credit, full stop. That's how it reads.
I would definitely advise people talk to their tax professional.
Absolutely.
I had a tax professional about 2 months ago say, yeah, I did my roof and solar. The chances I get audited are really low, and I'm going to claim everything because it was all under one contract. And so, I would say if your CPA or your tax pro is fine with submitting everything and it's all under one contract, then you can maybe get away with it. But you have to know that at the end of the day, if you ever got audited, there's a chance that, if that roof was 20 grand, then that 6 grand that you claimed on the roof ultimately may have to be repaid. But I don't know if that's ever actually happened. It's kind of a tough thing to advise people on.
I heard the IRS was hiring 80,000 new agents.
They're gonna practice on us.
Yeah, I don't think the IRS would want to come down on single families that are looking to do the right thing for the environment. However, just again, tread lightly. If you are looking to bundle some items, tread very lightly, and yes, always consult your tax professional.
And I always tell people too that, because I'll get on the phone and then they'll tell me, like the guy that I was talking to, he said, yeah, I can totally take the tax credit on the roof. And my only kind of advice to you is, slow down. Don't take your solar salesperson's word for it. Go ask the tax professional, because the solar salesperson is going to be gone by the time you're actually sitting down filing your taxes. They're not going to be the ones like vouching for you, writing a letter to the IRS for you. Like, no, that's not how it works. Like it's going to be whatever your tax pro ultimately is going to want and feel comfortable filing for you. So ask them first. Yeah, so Theo, what are some good tips for people that have maybe even already gone solar and they're trying to get as much out of their systems as possible? What are some things that, someone already who has solar ultimately can benefit from?
Yeah. The analogy here is make hay when the sun is up. So when the sun is up, energy is going to be at its lowest price point. When that power doesn't have to get transmitted miles and miles away to get to your home, and it's just from the roof to your electric panel to your home, that's when you're going to want to run your major loads. So your washer, your dryer, your dishwasher, charging up your electric vehicle. And on the back foot of that, you certainly want to even pre-cool your home. So if you like your house at 70, 71 degrees during the summer, as soon as 12 to 2 to 3 comes around, blast it a little cooler than what you want your home to be at, and you can ride that cool energy wave, throughout time of use, and just really maximize your efficiency there. And there's certainly some other things that an energy advisor can walk you through. Installing a smart thermostat is a great way to integrate solar and timing when that power is flowing to your home. Then, you've got the likes of double pane windows, blown in insulation. There's other energy tips there that don't supersede solar, but will supplement and get you the fastest return on investment possible.
Okay, great. So do you find that the blown-in insulation is really a good investment?
It is, and the reason why is because if a kilowatt hour saved, right? A kilowatt hour saved is a kilowatt hour effectively made. We see about a return on investment around 4 to 5 years for blown-in insulation.
That's really any investment, like in my opinion, that pays itself under 10 is pretty dang good. I mean, when you're talking about like real estate, like investing in like investment properties, people say like if you can get like a 10% ROI, which is a 10% or a 10-year payback period, like that's really great. Anything over 10% is considered pretty stellar. So if you can get a 20% ROI or a 5-year payback period, which is what you're talking about, then that's like you, regardless of if you're even going solar, you should probably have already done that yesterday.
And I will tip my hat to utility companies. There are some utility companies that do offer utility level incentives. In Tucson, we have a couple times a year, the utility company can offer a free smart thermostat, and there are utility companies like SRP that actually provide energy efficiency upgrade incentives like blown-in insulation. that will help you get to that 5-year ROI mark.
So Theo, one of the areas where people get confused about the most easily is when one, salesperson is saying that they should only have like a 75 or 80% offset, and then another sales guy is saying, no, we should do like 130% offset, and they're getting like different answers from different people, and it's like the difference of it's almost double the size, theoretically, right? To do a system that's like 9 kilowatts versus 5 kilowatts. And so can you kind of give some insight into like, assuming someone's in like APS territory, right? Where they are, experiencing about an 8.5 cent buyback and the price of power is around 16 cents. Where does the math really, how does it pencil out? Like, does it pay to do more offset? Is it better just to do a partial offset system? What's going to ultimately save people the most money and be better for you depending upon what your goal is?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. The core aspect of the question is really, how can I save the most amount of money possible? And in most circumstances, we're going to advocate for around 100% offset. We want to slice out the majority of your utility bill.
Is that with batteries or with no batteries?
No batteries at 100%, okay. Give or take 25% offset will see the maximum return on investment and the best bang for your buck when you're purchasing solar. Now, a lot of what we're experiencing in Arizona is this old style of designing where we just maximize your kilowatt hour production. So if your home is estimated to use 10,000 kilowatt hours, we'll have some designers step in with 14,000 kilowatt hour production, 140% offset. Now, the way that it used to work was in 2017, we had the utility companies offering a 1-for-1 net metering. Post 2017 and 2018, they've phased it down. So we used to be able to have 110% offset, result in 0 bills, 120, 130. Now, to eradicate those bills, we're seeing that 150% offset. So if you never want to pay anything again, it absolutely is recommended without a battery to go up to 150%. On the back foot of that, if we're looking to save the most amount of money and if financing is an option and that's something you're looking at with today's rates, that's where I would certainly advocate for looking at a battery option. And if a battery is not in the cards for you, the best possible way to save the most amount of money with solar is to maximize that self-consumption. What we see in Arizona, probably know we have some hot temperatures, and thus the air conditioning unit works extreme conditions and just will pump out energy throughout that 2 to 5 p.m. slot. So what we really want to do is maximize that self-consumption. We do that by prioritizing Western panels. You have a Western array in conjunction with a Southern array, you're able to push out the production of your solar system, not just have a high 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. peak. Instead, you're going to have 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and a nice even flow of electricity that can offset those high time of use bills that you're going to have from the utility company.
So you're saying that it's even better to maybe even sacrifice on a little bit of overall kilowatt hour production to, have more power basically being produced in the evening time, basically, right. Is what you're saying?
That's very accurate.
Because that's when the consumption is actually, like if someone doesn't come home from work till 4 or 5 o'clock, that power that they're producing between noon and 4, their house is using some of it, sure, but you're saying most of it's going to ultimately be going back to the grid, and that's we don't want that, right? As much we want to use that power directly. So okay.
Yeah, there's really 3 main variables that play into this: the price that you're purchasing energy from your utility provider, the price or rate at which solar can provide you energy, whether that's cash or finance. And that can range anywhere between 4 cents to 10 cents. And then the export rate. So we want your price per energy generated on your roof to be as low as possible. And what we do not want to create is a situation where if we're delivering energy for you at 9 cents a kilowatt hour, but the utility companies only purchasing it back at 8 or even 7 cents, that would be a net loss. Now, if your energy production is a little bit over, that's okay, because we certainly foresee batteries being added on later into homes.
Okay.
So if you want to future-proof your house and get a little bit of extra production, that's not the end of the world. But if you're staring down a design that has southeast or eastern heavy production, and you know that you're not really going to be able to consume that power in the morning and early afternoon, there's definitely a conversation to be had with batteries, or switching those panels from the eastern side to the western side, where that energy is much more valuable than it currently would be otherwise.
So do you recommend people ultimately have eastern and southern and western if they can, or do you think it's just about kind of maximizing the south and the western?
Yeah. So on my roof, I have a slightly southeast and a slightly northwest pitch. So what I did on my home is I put 10 panels on the southeast, and I put 12 panels on the west or northwest side. I know that I predominantly work from home for the most part, and I want as much consumption during the day. I like my house cool, and so those southern or southeastern panels are going to cover the early morning to afternoon. And then as the air conditioning unit steps in and lights start getting turned on around 5 or 6, I certainly want those western panels to step in, even if they're going to generate 10 or 15% less energy overall. That energy that they're making is much more valuable and can certainly even help the grid, reduce the demand during those peak times. So my recommendation is, if you're on the fence or it's been on the back burner for a little bit, do not leave it up to chance. There's 5 Arizona corporation commissioners that can ultimately decide the fate of solar for the next 10, 15, 25 years. And the export rate, while not insanely important in a world with batteries, if you want the fastest return and the most bang for your buck, absolutely get started. The worst situation possible is you go solar next year and the numbers don't really pencil out as well as you want. So you always want to get locked in with that grandfathering rate that is going to provide even better resellability on the home as well.
Yeah, guys, like whenever these energy commissions start talking about like basically getting rid of net metering or like really dropping the buyback credit a lot, it's time to basically get your solar in. Because it's just a matter of when, not if, when it comes to these the net metering incentives going away. So considering you said was it 20 years or 10 years that they lock you in?
Yeah, 10 years is the current grandfathering agreement.
Yeah, so like for 10 years you can lock yourself in, and what you don't want to do is casually wait until they do pass the bill, and then now all of a sudden if you go solar, it's going to be a 7-year longer payback period. I'm just making that kind of generic number up, but like that, that's a very likely scenario that can happen. So net metering is going to essentially go to the wayside. It's just a matter of when they're finally going to successfully get it passed. I mean, the utility companies are in the pockets of all of those 5 energy commissioners. Like in California, for example, when they passed NEM 3.0, for like 3 hours, I listened to a webinar where people called in. It was like a public hearing, and literally like everyone got like 3 minutes, and I watched like 100 people or like 50, tons and tons of people, right? They were just like, hey, this is going to be terrible for the industry. Why are you guys trying to destroy solar? And basically like robots, the 5 commissioners just sat there and just listened. And then at the end of the hearing, they just literally with no emotion on their face, all voted yay on NEM 3.0. And that was that. It was like they didn't even take into account one thing that anyone said, let alone there even being one person there to support NEM 3.0. So yeah, Arizona solar's a no-brainer at this point in time. Get your solar in before they do it. That's just kind of the truth. Everyone regrets it when it's gone, and no one realizes how valuable these incentives are when they're actually being offered. It wasn't until they were going to take away NEM 2.0 in California that everyone apparently wanted it, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong, those that realized that it was a great thing got it, and you know, tons and tons of people got solar, of course, before they announced the ending of the program. But yeah, it was like, we did a year's worth of business in 3 months when they announced that it was going away.
And if you're a prepared person like I am, you know, I want to make sure all of the ducks are in a row. So if there is even if there's a 1 or 2 month deadline, so come October, if the announcement is to drop that purchase rate of your energy by 40%, or even if it's 30%, that sets a timeline for you. And you certainly want to make sure that you get the best possible design for your home. If there's electrical work or if there's roofing work, that you allocate enough time to go through that process before the midnight, and you know, they slam their doors on all the applications, and you know, you're in a situation where you know, you either need bigger offsets, or batteries are certainly a necessity for your home, which isn't a bad thing, but always better to ensure that you're getting in on the ship that's leaving the harbor with the best seats.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good analogy. There's so many people that, you know, in California, they want to go solar, and they're still going to, because it ultimately pencils out, and it's the lesser of two evils per se. But it used to be like crazy sweet 5-year payback period, and you know, and lots of places in Arizona were just a couple of years outside of that. If all the factors are met, you know, correctly, somewhere around there, right?
Yeah. You know, it's
7 to 8.
Yeah, it's all about how much you can save and self-consume, and then you know, if you're exporting any more than 25%. You know, a lot of factors need to play into that, but I'll certainly say in APS we are looking at around, you know, an 8 to 9 ROI, and then in Tucson, you know, we've got a little bit comparable to that as well. It's all about what is the difference between what you're paying, what you're saving, and then what is the projected utility rate increase. If the utility rate increase is 5% a year, your cost avoidance is greatly increased by going solar, and that ROI period gets pushed. And that's another point I'll touch on as well. You know, if someone that you're sitting down with is telling you utility rates go up 10% every single year, just take that with a grain of salt. They may have gone up 10 or 15%. Certainly in some years that happens, but there are information resources out there. The EIA I always recommend. If you're looking at objective energy data, it's a great resource to lean into.
Theo, so what is something that like a true professional solar consultant that is really going to do a deep dive, a true analysis, versus just kind of casually put together, you know, kind of a proposal that may have some loose numbers on it? Why is it important for someone to know not only how much power like a household is using, but when and how much at certain times of the day that energy is being consumed?
Yeah, if you're getting an estimate and that advisor is not asking for your utility bill, that's certainly a big red flag. And if you're not even being asked questions on how many devices are in the home, what your current usage is, what your future projected usage is, and there's certainly an aspect that's missing there as far as designing a panel perfect system for you. To go a step further, most utilities will provide some version of green button data, and that's can come in the form of a spreadsheet where your hourly interval kilowatt hour usage is available, and that advisor can take the data that's provided and they can analyze it or even punch it into their own calculator, their own spreadsheet or design software, and you're able to get a very clear understanding of how that home uses power. Is there a sharp morning peak? Is there a low valley into the afternoon? And what does that evening peak look like for you? These are all super relevant assessments that need to be performed to understand what your new utility bill will look like in a post-solar environment.
Yeah, knowing how much power is being consumed, especially like outside of those hours that you know, the solar production is not at its peak. You know, for example, let's say a system produces 30 kilowatt hours on average, right? But one household uses 20 kilowatt hours in the daytime, and the other one uses 10 kilowatt hours in the daytime, you know, and then they flip, and, you know, the one house uses 20 kilowatt hours in the night, and the other one uses 10. And if we're designing a system with batteries, you know, even though both systems are producing the same amount of power and both households are using the same amount of power, one of those households is going to need about 10 kilowatt hours of storage more than the other one to get them through the full night, just because they're using power at such different amounts at different times of day. So yeah, I mean, that's a problem that I see, you know, some of these more mediocre, like kind of solar consultants that are maybe newer into the industry, or they don't have the software to allow them to do these full analysis. They'll unfortunately set people up with these kind of false expectations, whether it be on purpose or on accident. That's up to the specific scenario. But yeah, so you're saying that you can just call up the utility and get this green button data is what the hourly or the 15-minute interval data is called. And the software that you use and everything can you know, take that data and properly analyze it?
Right. The utility company should be able to have an online hub for you to download that. And then once that's downloaded, you can email that over, and Julian or myself can punch that into our own spreadsheet, our own calculation, and figure out what the highs, what the lows are going to look like for you. And certainly there's integrations with design software where you can plug in what it looks like as far as a daily use. And just remember, there's also weekend and weekday shifts as well. So if during the weekend it's laundry day and there's a lot of consumed energy, depending on your utility company, they might charge more or less on the weekend depending on their profile and how they're able to deliver energy for you.
This is also an area that I see a lot of like DIYers getting themselves into trouble, because they'll, you know, maybe they figured out over the course of a few months of research how to like build it a certain way, or like, you know, maybe they know how to go put standoffs in their roof or something because they figured out how to do it. And I have a lot of DIYers that pretty much, they call me up and they're like, hey, I know how to do this. I've already done my research and I've come to the conclusion that I need a 10 kilowatt system, right? And then like I'll be asking them some questions, and like I'll know kind of how their utility works, and like it's a completely different part of the analysis. Like you could know how to do standoffs, and you could know that you use 11,000 kilowatt hours a year or whatever. But if you don't understand that complex net metering agreement, which if you're just glancing at it for the first time, like there's probably going to be 100 little aspects of it that you can't even understand initially until you've been, you know, swimming around in it for a while, and like, you know, you've explored all the you know, the nooks and crannies of the agreement. You know, you're gonna, without trying, mess yourself up and basically misdiagnose what you need. I see this all the time where I get on the phone and in 5 minutes I'm explaining more than what this guy has figured out himself in a month worth of research. And so it's super important to talk with someone that actually understands, hey, if we put a system on your house that is going to do this, then X is going to be the result with the utility company, because there's a whole unique relationship and every single one is different.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And at the end of the day, again, I can't say this enough, but hone in on what you're looking for, you know, even write those goals down, and whether it's, again, build equity, save money, preserve the planet, use more power, or do it for the technology, there's a correct pathway forward. And when you partner with the correct company, the correct organization, you know, it's all going to click, it's all going to fall into place.
I really like what you said about hone in on your goals. Because if you are like, people go solar for different reasons, right? Some people, they just want to save as much money as possible, right? And some people, they're trying to give the middle finger to their utility company. Some people are trying to just be 100% as self-consuming as possible because they want the stability and they don't want to be reliant on any, they just want to produce all their own power themselves. Some people are basically, they're in it for the environment and they are just looking to basically make the biggest impact as possible in terms of their carbon footprint. And I think it's pretty safe to say that and a lot of these people have goals that are multiple of these goals, right? Like maybe they want to give the middle finger to the utility and save the environment at the same time, like multiple goals. But I think it's pretty fair to say that the person that's going to set themselves up to save the most amount of money is not going to install the same thing as the person that is wanting to basically be 100% self-reliant and never need to rely on the grid. Like it's gonna, the person that's, right? Because the person that's gonna need to rely on the grid or not rely on the grid, they may need $10,000 or $20,000 worth of infrastructure just to build a microgrid that, just the grid tied solar only system that's gonna save more money on paper, is going to provide. So making sure that you really understand your goals, like you said, I think is the key.
Yes. Make sure you call Julian.
That too, hopefully.
Yeah.
Call me. I'll help you out. So, like I said, we service specifically, Theo is in Tucson. He services all of Arizona. We do virtual appointments if you're in Phoenix or another city, Flagstaff or, any city.
Flagstaff, Yuma, Lake Havasu, Nogales. There's certainly anywhere where the light touches, we'll come out to you. So we've got installs all over the state and certainly all over New Mexico. We are based out of Albuquerque.
I'm going to throw a map up on as well that shows your serviceable area so everyone knows. And of course, guys, as well, I have over 25 states as well. So if you're watching this video for information and you're not in Arizona or New Mexico, reach out as well. So with that being said, give us a call. 760-473-5878, and I will put you in touch with Theo and we'll get you going.